Good morning to everyone around the whole of the globe. And as per my legal consideration, I would like to entail a lot of the questions. The questions regarding the civil interpretations come criminal modifications. Civil interpretations come criminal modifications. Today, I would be discussing why the lawyers and the other groups are always being charged under the 780A, because there appears to be an operative point which is not being observed by the same subject matter. That when any person who is trying to contest a petition and a case and a cause of action, thrice of them differs a lot. Whenever a person, individual who is contesting the petition, especially election commission's petitions. What comes the next that the election commission petitions? The question is that when the public itself want to have the election commission through the election campaigns, that petition would not be accommodated because the campaigns are not the issue of the Pakistani. That is the issue of the national treasury branches. But despite of all these ingredients, whenever there appears to be the gross observation of the election, and every person possesses a right to cast a vote, this is the primary factor in the Pakistan. The secondary factor, which I just observed, that the family suits today during the year 2022 and day of the 7th of the September, it is apparent from the face of the record in the civil courts of the all federal cum provincial autonomies that under the paper documentations, most often of the individuals are found in the public sector as to just rotating the same. This is not a concept that a predeceased judgment would have been considered by the narratives of the third party and second party. The original judgment narrator should be there. Their whole stature would be there, but the question when we just observe that all of the elements have no reciprocate area of the existence of the issues. Thereafter, what comes the next? The eliminations of the casting of social root issues in Pakistan is another executive issue, which should be understood by the Republicans. So, while observing all these issues, what would become my question? I just observe the Kashmir issue. I tend to understand that there is no bilateral and multilateral agreement among the Asian Central Groups of Association. As ambassador, we should have to be very clear that the national Asian groups of the water settlement agreement is the need of the hour as per my today implied come express judgment through this video linkage, and I'm sending this video linkage to the whole of the globe that we the Pakistani want water settlement agreement with the reciprocate countries like Iran, India, and so long other that we don't have because the water is a treasury of the Almighty. It is not a personal asset. So if there is no water-based reservations about the casting of the resilience factors of the humanitarian observation, and the said humans would have been found as not having the possession of the water under the adverse possession over the surface of the same in the properties thereafter, which factor lead the storms, floods, thundercast, and other sort of the issues, apparently posing to be a alarming situation for the rest of the provincial autonomy, especially into the border areas of the Pakistan. So I just observe or conduct an inquiry by myself throughout reading a whole night at what was the prime purpose which led the Pakistan border areas to be full of water, and there is a glacier, and there is and we don't have sufficient valuable information regarding the restoration of the glacier water into the cold storage rooms, which could turn down the cold water storage for the betterment of the humanity. Despite of that, we are found there under our personal sort of entertainment. The categories of this point, which I just reflect, that the institutions have trying their best, but the casting of the problems of the Republicans appears to be the next point of observation under the obstruction of erroneous errors. The concept of the pre-planned type of the voter terrorism act. Today, I have invented another law, the Voter Terrorism Act or Activities 2022 over my name. Yes. So the federal statute would will have to file that, because I observed that the water issues and the water restorations and the water resilient points and the water observations and the water confined replacement and the water inclined areas of compulsive in nature to the public at large. The second statement, which observe under the obsession of the doubts that when the water itself is in the trouble in the Pakistan, that the water lines, the pipelines of the whole of the Pakistan needed to be uh, cleared out because of the dirt of the old, old chemicals of the human exchange through their bathings. So the question, in connection with the obstruction level of the defection of the water reservoirs, appears to be the question which is not apparent on the face of record, but apparent on the face of telecasting show. But we have observed the telecasting show that there is a huge extreme line of the, you can say that, extreme line of the water challenges, and the public is not considering those challenges to be their personal challenges. And I'm totally out of the way of the consideration of the leverage of accommodating those facts, because then thereafter I observed that the concept of the water reservations, water automobilization, water derivations, and water inclined still circulation in uh, debt and credit term. This term is also invented by Advocate Gulraiz King. The credited amounts of the waters and the waters inclined in or inferred in the cities would always gather so much public disaster because of non-optimization of the Abkar issues. The PHA, the Pakistan Horticulture Authority, they are doing good for the parks, but what is about the concept of the global level of uh, water exchange rate? Today I would be discussing that the Pakistan and the Parliament and the Senate of same shall have to pass that the water exchange rate issue. Wide Article 184, I am raising this landmark judicial question today during the 7th of the August, that September that the water exchange rate, the Indians, if they want water, if they have water in inheritance and they have enmity from us, and we don't have the water reservations point and restorations point, and they send the water into Pakistani baseline cities, and we are merciless and we are just watching our uh, lovable individuals to be in dying positions, and we cannot do any kind of activity with the same subject matter of affection. Then we should have to communicate a point of restoration of the water reservations reservoirs as per my findings, because this judgment is the federal judicial judgment. The concept beside all these observation, I was observing whole week that what would have been done and what could be the salient features of the same. But alas, when I just observed that the water challenges of the Pakistan is becoming the curse to the Pakistan, then the water reservation issues in the Pakistan, the restoration order regarding the same is the concept of the same. So my personal judgment applied here that the water reservation and the water restoration and the water automobilization and the settlement of the water agreements and the decretal amounts of the water settlement issues. If any country send water to the other country without having the water agreement with the same, thereafter other country have to pay the damages. Now, if the Indian water is heading towards the states of the others, thereby what we are doing with our state is a question. That despite of filing the suit in the International Court of Justice, that it is uh, the problem behind the water issue in Pakistan, the storm fiber outburst, that those water is not automated. If the clouds were there, then this is unsettled precedent in Pakistan, that not there would be no point as to observation of the huge amounts of the amenities of water under extracurricular leverage of the water existence. After observation of all these facts, what I was confined with, the restoration observation of the perfect sort of the judgment into the mode of assessment, into the confinement of the social deferred positions. Thereafter, I have to do these things because I have to confine myself to configure the customary precedents unsettled into the settlement order. The settlement order of the water issues is a point. The settlement agreement of the water issue is a secondary point, and the water issues under the settlement order with the reciprocate multilateral bilateral country is third point. What does it mean that the multilateral country under the water agreement, under the water treaty law should have to be embezzled? If we have the water treaty with the other countries, thereafter if other country will be nullified to send the water, they will be charged guilty, and we will file the cause of action in the International Court of Justice with having a provident legal, judicial, legislative enactment in our favor. But we are not considering the baseline border issues of the Pakistan. We are considering the outcasted, outvalued issues of the humans decaying positions, because we consider self-explanatory decrease and the decretal amounts. This is my global observation regarding the same. So when I observe that the females defection areas inclined, the proportional deferred amounts of the ratios of the humans decaying one deferred, the concept of the payment of the human negations in existence is another orthodox thought and a very bleak thought. Meanwhile, I was considering the inquiry and the trial that if someone had expired during that water outbreak, I'm not willing to understand that that is a water outbreak. The concept beside not to understand that is the question which I just propelled now. The public itself is working there, and the water just came there suddenly, and there is, if you say that there would be a storm, the natural disaster that would always come through rain. But this water was not from rain. I observed that. This water included the clouds of the Indian. Yes, the Indians have to understand that they have clouds, and those clouds gather water in the Indian huge Himalayas, and those Himalayas water always impliedly declined in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, NWFP, and thereafter the other reciprocate areas always differ from the automobilization of the water issues, and all such issues always be configured with the public and humanity declining and dying positions, and there would be no dying declaration against the whom they have died, because that would be found under the act of the god. Yes, it is very easy to found that that is an act of the god, unnatural death. Two phrases they would be charged, and that their parent and their siblings would not be accommodated by any tribunal of administrative justice, because first they were poor, and the second they were suffering from the water issues, and the third they don't have the sufficient proper balance of the decree sheets, which they cannot afford by the lawyers. The concept that the localization in the polarization of the economy, along with the uh, unnatural sort of the activities within the Pakistan, appears to be the gross misconduct of the same subject line. So these were the baseline issues of the Pakistan stabilized take care advanced comparative constitutional advocate Gulraiz came. September 7th, I settled a precedent today.